Hey, Petey Grizz, what it is? How you doing today? Going into my collection to pull out a cool model from the Victorinox Delamont series. If you don't know, the Delamont series was what became a Wenger shortly after their purchase by Victorinox. Victorinox bought Wenger out around 2009. And in 2013-14, they stopped making Wenger knives under the Wenger brand. They continue to use the Wenger brand for clothing and accessories and bags and stuff like that. But the knives became Victorinox knives under the Delamont series brand, which means they're basically Wenger models. I still will always switch between saying Wenger and Wenger. It's just a thing. But anyway, the Wenger knives got a few minor tweaks, but are relatively intact. So the Evolution 23 is a continuation of a previous Wenger Model 23, which was formerly known as the Major. I am not as big a fan of these scales. I do like the Evo grip scales a lot, the dual texture scales. These ones, they're cool. I mean, they're great. What I don't like about the Evolution knives, I don't like how they put a hump on the liners here to have the scales feel more ergonomic. I would prefer if this was just a straight line across the bottom and didn't hump up here on the ends like it does, giving it that weird shape. I think if it was just the straight Wenger size with this texturing to it, that would be much better, and it would also provide you the opportunity to just be able to swap the Wenger scales without, them leaving the liners exposed, which I know you can grind the liners down or whatnot, but that's too much work for me. I'm lazy. I just like knives, sue me. Anyway, got our typical Wenger opening layer with the patented push-to-lock screwdriver. It does not stop at a 90-degree angle, but it does when you put downward pressure, such as driving a screw with it. It pushes in to a little slot in the tang, and that keeps it from folding up on you if you get a little wonky on it, and keeps you from busting your knuckles against the wall or metal bar or whatever you're driving a screw into. Not that that many people are using flathead screws nowadays. You do see them in some in machine bolts and stuff like that. But generally, screws are either going to have Phillips or Torx or some other kind of head on them. That's a lot more practical. The major difference between the Wenger and the Delamont knives is that they ditched the Wenger lobster claw can opener, which, while very effective as a can opener, only works as a can opener, whereas the Victorinox can opener that they patented in 1951 and have used ever since has this dual purpose head that is a small flathead screwdriver that is also cleverly shaped to work quite well as a 2D Phillips driver. And if you don't know this about Phillips screws, when you're using a normal 3D Phillips screwdriver, unless the machining is absolutely flawless, which is seldom the case, generally only two of the flanges are actually exerting force on the screw. The other two mainly keep it locked in place. The real original purpose of Phillips screws was to have a designed-in system where it was very difficult to over-torque the screws. I guess that might have been a problem back in the day with flathead screws, but flathead screws are a lot easier to apply torque to. A Phillips head, because of the angles, if you start to over torque it, it just starts to either twist out or strip the screw entirely. So generally you'll stop before you make the screw too tight, or just plain snap the head off, which happens a lot when you're using bit drivers and impact guns and stuff like that, especially on stuff you're not supposed to be using them on, like electrical devices and such. The next layer is an interesting one. You've got the Wenger magnifying glass / screwdriver combo. And I always notice when these are for, like when older Wengers are for sale with you'll sometimes see the magnifying glass missing, and I wholeheartedly believe that is because combining a magnifying glass and a screwdriver was a bad decision. I think that, you know, any small flat thing like this has a tendency to end up eventually getting used as a pry bar. Even if you're just thinking, I'm just going to use it to put a little bit of pressure on it. It doesn't take much pressure to warp this just slightly and cause the lens to fall out. So just a bad idea. I mean, yeah, having another flathead screwdriver is great and all, but I mean, come on, really? Like, it's just, you know, there's sometimes where they just throw a feature in there for the sake of throwing a feature in there. And that is the case with this, in my opinion. The next layer is the Wenger saw, which is just slightly chunkier. Now, let me see if I got a Victorinox saw here. Yeah, here's a Victorinox. This is an 84 millimeter, but it's got a similar profile. You see the head's a little bit more tapered. Now, Wenger saws for a long time had a nail nick on them, but then in later years, and ever since with Victorinox, they made them just a tad longer so that the tip sticks out just a bit past the end and lets you get your thumbnail or fingernail under it, which is much easier than grabbing the nail nick in there, in my opinion. Then we've got the wonderful Wenger scissors. Really a marvel of engineering and design. I'm very into engineering and design and like the thought process that goes into mechanical workings. So that is something that impresses me. Such a simple machine, but it's elegant in its simplicity in that it uses, rather than having a whole separate spring here, it uses a lever to use the spring that's already there, which is much more durable. It's not going to fall out or misalign. The Victorinox scissors are better as scissors in my opinion, but this design for a spring bar is better. The one downside to that is that the scissors, the actual handles your thumb goes on, cannot be as thick because the scissors have to allow the space for this bar to collapse in there. So you end up with them having to fold on top of each other. You nest in with each other rather than be on top of each other like the Victorinox scissors, which give you a more comfortable handle here. But really, if you're cutting something with these little scissors, it's not like you're chomping down on you know, steel cable or something with it, so you're not really putting that much torque on it. It's not like an issue, but it is an aesthetic thing. You know, the Victorinox scissors look nicer, but these ones I think are functionally more impressive. Back layer, we got the nail file, and at least got it right on the Delamonts. You know, a lot of people complain that on the cadets and sportsmans and stuff like that, the file surfaces on the inside, it rubs against the blade and scratches the blade all up. Me personally, I don't care about that because it's a knife. Yeah, I'm not worried about it getting scratched up if I'm going to use it. And if it's just going to be a display piece, then I'm not using it that much, so it's not an issue that I have to deal with. You know, what I'll do is, if I was really concerned about it, I would just make sure I had the main blade open before opening and closing the small blade, just to ensure that I'm still paying for having to cut off my fingernails last week because they're so short that I cannot reach anything. But that one little EKA knife with the busted nail nick really tore my fingernails up. We've got a Victorinox Swiss-made Delamont 3-line tang stamp. Nothing on the back. Bravo. Then on the back, we've got simply a Victorinox style reamer. This is another change from the Wenger knives. The Wenger style reamer had a different shape to it, a little longer, a little more slender, and it had a opening, a little thumb hole here where you could reach a nail nick on it. The Victorinox nail nick is on the opposite side. This is a more effective reamer. I mean, they both work about the same as a punch, but this sharpened edge here definitely gives it an edge if you're looking to, you know, ream out holes larger. And a corkscrew. Nothing fancy there. It's a corkscrew. They do outsource their corkscrews. They've been outsourcing their corkscrews for many years, from my understanding, and it doesn't surprise me. It's just such a specialty part. It's, you know, if you can get the high quality corkscrew for a penny from, by the millions from France instead of paying 3 or 4 cents to manufacture them themselves. It just makes sense. Yeah. Key ring, toothpick, tweezers, box. What more can you say? It's the Evo 23. The other great thing about the Evo knives is you've got the Wenger blade I wanted to talk about. I always like to talk about this. The Wenger blade has a slightly different profile than a Victorinox blade, which is more streamlined towards the tip. The Wenger has more belly, as all the cool knife bros like to say, but whatever that means. But maybe it's more slicey. There's another knife bro buzzword for you, because everybody loves them buzzwords. So there you go. Anyway, that's it for the Evo 23. Peter Grizz out.